Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We'll start sharp, segment one. There is a companion workbook, and the students at the High School for Recording Arts can either request a copy of this workbook and it will be emailed to you, or you can stop in the school in the front lobby and pick one up. So first we're going to talk about some of the definitions and facts. It's really important that we keep an open mind with this, because I'm going to be really frank with you, because sexually transmitted illnesses and disease is serious business, and we can't afford to be confused, all right? Because some of these STIs and other infections, there's no cure. And if we beat around the bush about how they're transmitted, people could find themselves talking about, ooh, duh, I didn't know that. I want you to know. I want you to know how to protect yourself. Because just like our COVID virus, there are tools and there are behaviors that you can practice that can protect you. Okay, so right now, with the COVID virus, it's so new and there are so many things about it that are unknown. The only thing that we could do right now is quarantine ourselves, all right? And keep distance from one another. Now, with this education about sexually transmitted diseases, there are some very specific things you have to do to contract these illnesses. So, if we ever come out of this quarantine and it is safe to come in contact with one another, because of course, if you're quarantined with your family, if you're quarantined with your husband or wife in this situation, and you know that you've been tested or you have not been exposed, you may be safe enough to realize that you have two healthy people together and you don't have to worry about the social distancing. Okay? But with STIs, there's some very specific behaviors you have to engage in. First of all, you have to get closer than 6 feet in order to find yourself susceptible to the STIs and HIV and pregnancy. But we're going to talk about it because we know that there are some people who, during this times of quarantine, are finding themselves with a lack of recreational activities and finding that canoodling might be something to pass the time. Well, make sure you know who you're canoodling with and make sure that you have some knowledge about what is and what is not risky behavior. So, on our first page in our workbook are definitions. I'll go over them. You can read along. Some of these you may know, and some others you might be surprised. Okay? And what I hope that this will do will at least make you familiar so that you don't get surprised. And I also want you to understand that we're going to speak real frankly about behaviors that people participate in. Some people may not have had any experience with intimate behaviors, and then there are others who have a lot of experience and have engaged in lots of different types of practices. But what I want you to know is this is human behavior. And you can't just look at somebody and tell what types of behaviors they engage in. It's not until you get to know someone and know them well and communicate. So, as you're communicating, this is an activity that will give you some language to use. First on the list, human immunodeficiency virus. The acronym is HIV. It's the virus that causes AIDS. Human immunodeficiency. Immunodeficiency is one word. Do you know what immunodeficiency, what that means? It's real critical in this time because people with human immunodeficiency virus are at a much higher risk of falling victim to the COVID-19 because it attacks people with immunodeficiencies. When your immune system is weak, there are lots of ailments that can cause your immune system to be weakened and make you more susceptible to a lot of other ailments. So the human immunodeficiency virus is a virus that attacks and weakens your immune system. And it's the virus that causes AIDS. AIDS, another acronym, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. AIDS is the result of the infection, the human immunodeficiency virus. AIDS makes the body unable to fight infection from other diseases. And it's a syndrome. It means that a multitude of things have transpired and have put you in this condition. And that becomes the syndrome. So, HIV virus is the virus that causes AIDS. STI. What is STI? There once was a time when they called it STD. S, sexually, T, transmitted, I, infections. So sexually transmitted infections, STI. STD, the old term, sexually transmitted diseases. STI, a viral or bacterial infection that is passed from one person to another during sexual activity. Examples are chlamydia, gonorrhea, genital warts, and HIV. Now, these sexually transmitted infections are both bacterial and viral. It's important to know bacterial infections can be treated with antibiotics, but viral infections don't necessarily have medications that can treat them. They usually run their course. They usually can't be eradicated, or you can't get rid of these viral infections. They often ebb and flow when they're in remission, or they can become active. Viral infections would include the genital warts and the HIV, whereas bacterial infections are more like chlamydia and gonorrhea. Genital warts, you usually have them for the rest of your life. HIV, you usually have that for the rest of your life. Now, they can be treated, and your symptoms can go into remission, but generally, viruses cannot be cured. There are medications that may reduce your symptoms or slow down the transmission, but once you've been infected with this virus, it has to run its course. Sexual intercourse. That's a term that some people may confuse, all right? Because what you need to know is that there are specific behaviors that can result in specific consequences. So people can say that they had sex, and they may very well have, but it wasn't necessarily intercourse. So sexual intercourse is when a penis is put inside the vagina or the anus, the rear end, all right? But the penis must be inside of the vagina or the rectum. That's intercourse. Vaginal sex. Vaginal, that is the female reproductive organ, the vagina. So vaginal intercourse specifically means when a penis is inserted into the vagina. This is the act that can result in pregnancy. Oral sex. Oral sex is not intercourse. Okay? Oral sex, or fellatio, or cunnilingus. Oral sex is with your mouth. It's when the man puts his penis inside a person's mouth, or when a person puts their mouth on a woman's vagina. So that's oral sex. It cannot produce any babies, so it's not intercourse. Anal sex, which is included in the intercourse, but it's basically when a penis is inserted into a person's anus or rectum. So anal sex is the penis going into the rear end. That is also considered sexual intercourse. Abstinence. Anybody heard of it? Abstinence. Abstinence is not having vaginal, oral, or anal sex with any other person. Okay? So, abstinence, when you are abstaining from sexual contact with someone else. Semen or cum. Semen is what comes from a male sex organ. Semen is the fluid that comes out of the penis before and during ejaculation. Ejaculation is the orgasm that produces the fluid. And the fluid it produces is called semen or cum. Some people refer to it as cum. But cum is kind of the unisex term for bodily secretions of fluid from your genital area. So semen comes from the male sex organ. Vaginal secretions. The fluids that come from a woman's vagina. The cum or the discharge. Vaginal secretions. Secrete means to come out. So the vagina produces fluids. So vaginal secretions. Condoms. Condom. A covering that's made of latex or other materials that fit over the man's erect penis. Condoms. Lubricants. Liquids that make condoms more slippery, like KY jelly. But remember, if you are ever looking for lubricants, be sure to only use water-based lubricants. If you need something, or if someone is going to use something to make a condom more slippery, it shouldn't be just random lotions or any type of oils. You always want, or you should only allow a partner or a merchant at a store to sell you a water-based lubricant. KY jelly is one of the names of a popular lubricant. Safer sex. That's a term that you'll want to keep in the back of your head. Safer sex. Just what is that? Safer sex, sexual practices that involve no exchange of blood, semen, or vaginal fluids. And they reduce the risks of HIV infections. So that's our list so far of terminologies that it's important that you know. If you have any questions or want further information about any of these terms, I would suggest for right now that you Google and take notes. Google and take notes, and email Check Yourself Health and Wellness if you have questions. If you want to know in more detail about some of these terms, or how to find condoms, please reach out. We make condoms available free, condoms and lubricant, because our whole mission is to prevent unwanted pregnancies and reduce the risks of people contracting STIs and HIV. There are clinics around town that also offer free condoms, but they can be purchased in most drugstores in the pharmacy area. Some are behind the counter and some are not. But never be ashamed to save your life. Ask someone. So, I also want to talk about body fluids, because now we're going to talk about some of the myths and some of the facts. Okay? Because we know that HIV is a virus that puts your life and health at risk. There's also not a cure. Medications have been developed to help control and reduce your viral load. But it's very important that if you're going to practice safer sex, if you just can't abstain, be sure that you know which fluids put you at risk, and also be wise enough to know that HIV and STIs are not easy to get. There are certain things you have to do. So coming in contact with persons who are HIV positive is not a risk. It's only a risk if you participate in certain activities or exchange certain body fluids. So I'm going to ask you these questions to keep in mind, take some notes, and find out which of these body fluids can transmit HIV. So first, we're going to look at blood, semen, tears, vomit, vaginal secretions, breast milk, urine, sweat, saliva, or mucus, nasal secretions. It's mucus. Spit, mucus, the thick in the back, saliva and mucus. Okay, so which of these body fluids can transmit HIV? We're going to take a break and be back. Do some research, either Google search, or some of you may already know. And then we're going to come back with the results. Peace and protection. Wash your hands and don't touch your face. Stay 6 feet from your neighbor.